Hey everybody, welcome back. Pastor Shane here again. This is episode 15 of our journey through the Sermon on the Mount. And last week we talked about giving, righteous giving, and talked about what that looks like and what it should be and how Jesus tells us we're supposed to do it. And this week we're transitioning into a two-part look at the Lord's Prayer. And I'm just calling it righteous prayer because that's kind of the theme that Jesus began about how we are supposed to practice our faith righteously in public. So, but before we get to that, I want to just take a moment and say thank you to everybody who's watching and the kind words that I've received over the past little bit about the videos. I'm grateful, and several people told me they've been a blessing. That's what I want. Okay, I'm grateful for that. Thank you for the encouragement. It lets me kind of know that I'm going in the right direction with these videos. Very, very, very grateful that you took the people that taking time out to say thank you. And I started this series back when Missouri's COVID lockdown kind of went into effect, and it's just a way to stay engaged with my church family, right? And the whole thing about kingdom life is that this is how Christ has told us that we should be living in stressful times. Okay, it's easy to fall back into responding in our flesh, and so I hope that these teachings are serving as timely reminders of how our responses should be spirit filled instead of flesh filled. Jesus died so that we could live spirit filled lives, especially in times of turmoil and difficulties. And so that's how our lights are the most bright, is that in times like this is how we live, and this lets the world see the difference between a life with Christ and a life apart from Christ. And so that's my hope, that's my goal. I mean, that's all it's ever been, right? So let's get started with reading our verses for this episode, okay? It's Matthew chapter 6, verses 5 through 8. That's the first half. This is part one of the two-part series. And so let's just read that together. Here we go. And when you pray, you must not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corners, that they may be seen by others. Truly, I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And when you pray, do not heap up empty phrases as the Gentiles do, for they think that they will be heard for their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask him. Okay, that's where we will stop today. And I'm breaking this teaching into two parts because honestly it's a big topic and it covers several verses. And so first we're going to cover how to pray, and then next time we do this, hopefully next week, we will catch the actual Lord's Prayer and see how Jesus told us what to pray. Okay. Now, just like the previous verses about giving, Jesus starts us off by telling us how not to pray, okay, or rather how to pray unrighteously. Now, once again, I mean, he takes aim at religious people, or as he frequently calls them, hypocrites. Okay, he says they love to stand in public places where they can be seen praying by others. All right. And so just like last time when we talked about giving, when you give in a way that draws attention to yourself, when you pray in a place or a way or whatever, so that people will see you doing it to draw attention to you, you forfeit your heavenly reward for a temporary one, which is the praise of men. And like we said last week, reputation and the praise of men can be great one week, and then the next week it's taken away and people turn against you because men are fickle. Now, Jesus offers these instructions for these instructions for now how to pray righteously. So first thing, go into your room and pray in secret. Now, what does that mean? Now, some translations, I know that the King James says the New King James says secret place. Some other translations say inner room or closet. But let's just take a moment and think about a first century Middle Eastern home. Okay, unless you were wealthy, you likely didn't have what we would think of as a closet. Okay, because you simply didn't. Number one, you didn't have enough clothing to justify sacrificing that space for clothes in an already small dwelling, right? In fact, most homes were only one or maybe two rooms for dwelling. Okay, so what did Jesus have in mind then when he said, "Go into your room, shut the door, and pray in secret"? Well, like I said, the New King James calls this the secret place, and the question I'm posing here is, should we think of this as a literal physical place? Okay, is Jesus suggesting that when we want to pray, that we should go home to a room that we have set aside for prayer, be that our bedrooms, our kitchens, or maybe you have a home office, or as some have done, actually, created a literal prayer room that you've sectioned off from the rest of your house? Or can your room or secret place, whatever you want to call it, be anywhere that you can find privacy with Jesus? For that matter, is privacy a matter of a place, or is it simply a matter of concealment? In other words, can your secret place be a prayer journal that you write as you sip coffee in Starbucks around people who have no idea what you're doing? They don't know what you're doing, which makes it secret, right? Let me help you. Yes, all right. Now, I know people who have prayer rooms, and I know people who have prayer journals. All right. Some people have both. Okay. I know people who pray in their journals in Starbucks, and I know people who pray at their kitchen table. Okay. The point here is about prayer. The point about prayer is that it's focused on fellowship with God and not impressing people. Now, I know some of you may bristle at the idea of a prayer journal at Starbucks, but let me say this. The point is intimate fellowship, not location. All right. I can attest to this. I personally can and have and probably will in the future sit in a restaurant, a place where I don't have to pay attention to anyone else, and talk privately with Jesus in my journal just as easily as I can sit here at this desk in my home. In fact, I'll go as far as to say this: most of our prayers will be public if we're to pray without ceasing. So we should learn the discipline of tuning out everything when it's appropriate and as we're able, not while you're driving necessarily, but tuning out everything that's going on around us during our day and talking with the Lord. Turn off the music, turn off the podcast. I mean, whatever it is the background noise that you keep going on around you while you drive or when you're at home, and just speak with the Father. Okay? Now, next, Jesus says this in so many words. Don't be wordy. Okay? It says, do not heap up empty phrases. This isn't a prohibition on eloquence or long prayers, because if that were the case, I know some who've prayed wrong for many, many years. Okay? But the empty phrases that Jesus is targeting are the kind of the mindless repetition of words. Okay, the Gentiles, unsaved Gentiles, would often pray these kind of rote, memorized, repetitive phrases, kind of mindlessly, as if those phrases would somehow make their prayers better heard by their gods. And let me just break from my notes here. Christians do this too with the very prayer that we're about to study next week. The Lord's Prayer can become rote, and it become mindless, and it can become something that Jesus is teaching us here to not do. So we got to be careful, all right? But Jesus is just saying, don't pray mindlessly. Don't ramble. Don't pray anything that isn't consciously coming from your heart and out of your mouth, okay? Friends, I don't consider myself a long prayer person, okay? But it helps to remember that prayer is fellowship. It's conversation. If when I talk to Radine, my wife, if all I ever do is speak to her in the barest, most minimal language and vocabulary that I can get out as fast as I can, she would probably feel like I'm not really interested in communicating with her. Our marriage would deteriorate quickly if that's how I started speaking to her all the time. See, the fact is this. If we love someone, we communicate with them. And we communicate with them in ways that make them feel loved and appreciated. And that's how a relationship works. We should take that principle and communicate with God in ways that demonstrate how much we love him. That means a steady diet of brief, bare bones prayers almost says that you're not really all that interested in fellowship. So, now, Jesus isn't discouraging us from long, heartfelt prayers. He's telling us that long prayers full of empty phrases are meaningless. Okay? Our Father knows what we need before we even ask. It says that right there in the verses we just read. That isn't suggesting that we don't have to ask. It just means that all we need to do is simply ask, and he will supply. See, so the cultivation of a healthy prayer life is marked by honest, heartfelt conversation with the Father. Period. Okay. That's it for this one. All right. So that's part one. In the next episode, we will get into the content of the Lord's Prayer, and we're going to seek to understand what exactly Jesus meant when he said, pray like this in the next verse. I'll confess to you, okay, my prayer life can use some cultivation. But I'm sure that most of you would actually end up admitting the very same thing. No matter how close we get to God, no matter how long we've journeyed with him, we will always find ourselves looking at our devotion to him and say we're lacking, okay, in some way. I would actually kind of shy away from the person that says, hey, everything's great, everything's perfect, nothing needs to be improved. I would not let that person into my inner circle, okay? But we'll never, because here's the truth, we'll never sense that we've arrived until we see Jesus face to face. So, as always, I hope that this has been helpful. I hope I've been clear. So next week we will dive a little bit deeper, and if you will forget, I thought about this halfway through the video. I haven't even brushed my hair this morning. I hope you will forgive me for that. But I was just excited to get in here and make this video and put it out there for you. So forgive the bad head, and until then, until the next video, grace and peace.